This is the Tea Party congressional debate for District 3 presented by the Baton Rouge Tea Party and the Tea Party of Louisiana.
For the next question, for Mr. Landry first.
Sure.
The 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution gives all rights not reserved to the federal government to the states. What do you believe is the proper relationship between the local, state, and federal governments as envisioned by our founders?
I believe that our founders, when they set up this Constitution, envisioned that each state would have its sovereignty, that a state would be treated somewhat like a citizen as part of our government. And they understood that when you bring the power closer to the people, that the people have more control of it. The trampling of the 10th Amendment over the past 30 years has definitely been to our detriment and only satisfied the appetite of the federal government. We need people to go to Congress who respect the states, who allow the states to be states. And when we do so, the federal government doesn't have to provide the failed services that it's providing today. And then we start to save money. And then our deficits come down. And people have a greater handle on their government.
Thank you. Candidate Magar.
The federal government is a corporation comprised of the states. And I think we've forgotten how much power we have not only as states, but as individual citizens, as sovereign citizens of each individual state. And in terms of understanding what our founding fathers intended and how they set up this form of government, we can always look back to their reference material. If you go to Deuteronomy chapter 1, verses 9 through 18, Moses Moses in those verses sets up the foundation for the Republican form of government, which we have based this country on. Again, the states form the federal government. The federal government is only superior to the states on the delegated powers that the Constitution provides to the federal government. And as individual citizens and as individual states, we need to take back the power that was delegated to us by the 9th and 10th Amendments.
Thank you. And a rebuttal?
Well, I would just like to add that it is the people who formed our government. It is the people who wrote that Constitution. And again, to remind everyone that as important as the 10th Amendment is, so is the 9th Amendment. And we should never forget that if we form that government, we can control it.
Thank you. On to the next question. Since 9/11, there has been great concern over the safety of U.S. citizens. New laws, agencies, procedures have been approved to assist in the war on terror. Where do you draw the line between liberty and security? Dr. Magar.
Can you restate that question? I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
Basically, what I'm trying to say is there have been a lot of laws passed since 9/11.
Right, you're referring to the Patriot Act.
That's one of them, correct.
Okay.
At what point in time do we quit giving up liberties for security? How do you feel?
That's a very interesting question. I think there's a very thin line between giving up some of your rights and your freedoms for security. If you think about the fundamental principle of why we institute government in the first place, the reason we have government in the first place is to protect our rights. And when we get to a point where government is passing laws in the name of security and then taking away our rights, I think it's crossed the line.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Landry?
Well, first of all, if we can breathe some trust in Congress, if we can send men and women who truly believe in the Constitution and who truly want to serve the people instead of themselves, that when in a time of attack or in a time of threatened, heightened national security, we should trust that they would pass laws to protect us. The trick is that those laws must have sunset provisions in them, so that when they're passed and when those sunset provisions occur, Congress and the people can determine whether or not the threat has passed. I will tell you, I will do everything in my power as your congressman to protect every person in this room and in this district and in this state and in the United States.
Thank you, sir. And rebuttal.
This Constitution is a constitution of negative liberties, of what the government can't do to us. Our founding fathers didn't trust government. Under no circumstances would I trust any one of us or anyone else to go to Congress and to start taking those liberties away. Our founding fathers didn't trust this government, and neither should we. When we started trusting this government, that's where we went wrong.
Thank you. And for the next question. Our current administration and the majority of Congress believe that the American public need to depend on the government. How do we address the long-term cost of entitlement programs, and how do we get more Americans back on the path to prosperity?
Well, we did a great job in the 1990s under the Gingrich Congress of reforming welfare. All of our entitlement programs are running this country broke. And when we show people that taking on a little bit of responsibility, such as paying something, paying part of their money in taxes, they're going to think twice about abusing that system. Look, I have pledged, I was the first candidate in this race to pledge, that if you send me to Congress, I will not partake in congressional health care or retirement, because I want to serve you, not me. Because I've sat on that couch as frustrated and watched congressmen go to Washington and realize that I continue to pay for them. They can't fix Social Security because it's not their problem, it's ours. They can't fix health care because it's not their problem, it's ours. And when we send people to Congress who want to truly serve us instead of themselves, then they will, and they lead by that example, I believe that we will end those, get to a point where we will end those entitlements. I mean, charity is where, our charitable organization is where we care for each other. The New Deal programs didn't invent despair in people. It was there before. And those people were being taken care of, and it was taken care of by our charitable organizations. And that's who I would like to take care of Americans who have fallen down on hard times.
Thank you, sir. And a rebuttal.
Yes, sir. Mr. Franklin, Benjamin Franklin, wrote on counterproductive compassion. He said that compassion which breeds debilitating and dependency and weakness is counterproductive compassion. We have a situation here where our entitlement spending is $1.4 trillion. This is Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. And we talk about cutting spending all the time to pay for these social service programs. The fact is, we can't cut enough from our budget to pay for these items. The truth is, we're broke. And what we've got to do, we've got to do three things. Number one, we've got to remove non-citizens from the rolls. We've got to remove able-bodied and able-minded citizens from these roles. And we've got to set forth a 20 to 30-year plan to transition us away from this government dependency mindset that persists today in America. Now, there's three age groups we can talk about, and we can debate this in Congress. We can, there's lots of ideas out there. If you're over a certain age group, we're going to allow people to keep that. If you're in another age group, maybe allow those people to have an option. And below that, maybe go towards a private program where we don't take those 15% in taxes for Social Security from those people. We can have that debate, but we need to acknowledge the fact that we're broke, and we need to acknowledge the fact that we're going to have to do something different. We can't continue on this path.
Thank you. And a rebuttal.
Look, it was the president's one of his first policies, or one of the first pieces of legislation that he wanted to run through Congress, was to cut the amount of deductions we had when we given to charitable organizations. Again, I will tell you that when we allow our faith-based organizations to do the job that they've always done historically through our past, that we will be less reliant on government and more reliant upon each other.